Alright folks, this is a big one. The infamous Zodiac killer, responsible for the killings of 5 or 6 victims around San Francisco and coded messages to the police. Last year, a group of people decoded one of the Zodiac killer's secret messages, revealing that he wasn't afraid of capture or death, and that he was killing people to capture them as slaves in the afterlife. Alright, that last part could be a metaphor he used, maybe it's not literal. Anyway, investigator group The Casebreakers have claimed to have found the Zodiac killer after 50 years, and now some of the police originally assigned to the case are agreeing with their conclusions. So, who is it? Gary Francis Poste. Do you know who that is? Me neither. Apparently he's the Zodiac killer, and he's some dude. Even more disappointing, he's already dead, having died in 2018. So, what made the Casebreakers conclude that Gaza here was the Zodiac killer? Well, first off, the Casebreakers claim to have several pieces of circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is evidence that can be interpreted multiple ways. It doesn't prove anything on its own, but when combined with other pieces of evidence, it can create a more convincing story than direct evidence. These include a footprint of the same shoe size and style that Poste was known to wear, scars on his forehead being similar to those in the sketch of the Zodiac killer, even a photo of a piece of wood showing the shadow of the Zodiac killer's famous Berryessa hood costume. An anonymous source, only giving their first name, claimed that Gary groomed them into committing crimes over decades. But their most damning claim, that his full name, Gary Francis Poste, is the key to solving other letters the Zodiac killer mailed to police. Apparently, taking these letters out of the messages reveals another alternate message. This isn't just a new discovery either. Rumors began circulating around San Francisco locals in 2017 about Poste being the Zodiac killer, after he was arrested for pushing his wife down the stairs, and the FBI got involved in investigating him more. This became known in some online forums, and apparently Gary himself, as well as one of his childhood friends, were aware of this and even posted in these forums. His close friend, Glyn Barnes, would then proceed to comment on his Facebook posts after his death, referring to him as the Zodiac killer. Glyn went on to post about how Gary really was the Zodiac killer, and the Riverside poem found scratched into a library desk was written by him. The initials at the end, RH, referred to, according to Glyn, his closest friend and business partner, Rodney Hamlin. So what do I think? I'm sorry, but I don't buy it. Gary is innocent. Well, of the Zodiac murders at least. This all sort of falls apart once you look at it in detail. This photo could show a shadow of anything square-shaped. It could also show a water stain. The reason for taking this photo is unknown, so it's very unlikely that it's the shadow of the Zodiac killer's hood. The footprints were of a size 10 military-style boot. Size 10 isn't exactly uncommon, and neither is a military-style boot. I've made a mistake here. This style of boot is called a wing walker, and they're quite uncommon. At the time, they were only really available for those who had served in the US military. While Gary Poste was a veteran, there were also several other veterans in the area. However, you win this one, Gary. This is the weakness of circumstantial evidence. It can fall apart without support. A watch was found near the crime scene of the murder of Cherry Joe Bates, which a Zodiac killer never admitted to, but this murder was attributed to him by some. There was paint splattered on the watch's face, which the Casebreakers used to connect this to Gary F. Poste, because he was a professional painter. However, wouldn't a painter know all about paint? How to remove it? To take off your watch before painting in the first place? It makes more sense for an unprofessional to have paint splattered on their watch. Poste's hair color is brown, just like how they found brown hair clutched in Cherry's hand. Most people's hair color is brown, so we can dismiss this fairly easily. There was no DNA evidence given. Several people have claimed that Poste has groomed them into becoming hardened criminals. These grooming sessions involve taking them on hunting trips, teaching them to shoot, and teaching them to drive. They associated this with killer behavior because he was callous to the animals he killed and beat his wife. It's true that he wasn't a good person by any means, but to connect this to serial killer behavior, it seems like a bit of a stretch. Here's the kicker. None of the witness descriptions of the Zodiac killer mentioned forehead scars. The only thing even close was the presence of wrinkles. Forehead scars were only assumed to make this theory work, when to me at least, the clear intent of that sketch is to show the Zodiac killer was old enough to have wrinkles. To me, this seems more like some in-joke than anything else. It may seem weird to us now, but such dark nicknames and in-jokes aren't exactly uncommon. This also makes sense looking at the context of the posts. If his friend really wanted to reveal the Post was a Zodiac killer, why not go to the police first? Why would you make a sly joke in your Facebook first? No information has yet been released on how removing Gary Post's name from the Zodiac killer's letters reveals extra information. We cannot use this as evidence until at least something is submitted. What does Rodney Hamlin have to do with the poem at all? This seems like it adds to the Zodiac killer as an in-joke theory, because there's no reason to write the initials of your best friend at the bottom of a deep and personal poem. The case breakers have refused to reveal the ciphers at all, or DNA evidence, or the location of the supposed murder weapons. My prediction? The case breakers are really trying to sell a book on how the Zodiac killer is Gary F. Poste. It's true that Gary F. Poste was not a good person at all, abusing his wife and potentially being cruel to animals. But the evidence presented is not grounds enough to claim that he was a notorious serial killer. You can read the full press release in my description, where I'll have a link to it. I'll have an update to this video once more information is released, so be sure to subscribe. Until then, this is George from the Ashes to Ashes podcast, signing out.